Hello, my name is Alexis, and I will be discussing rounds 1 through 4 in research and development. To kick off round 1 in research and development, Team Ferris opted to adopt the broad differentiator strategy, which aims to maintain a presence in every segment in the market that they choose to participate in, and doing so hope to gain the competitive advantage through design, meeting customer specifications, over time build that awareness and accessibility, as well as pricing at a premium. The mission statement for this strategy states premium products for the industry. Our brand withstands the test of time. Our stakeholders are customers, stockholders, management, and employees. After analyzing round 1, it was determined that we were struggling with executing these customer specifications. So while we were meeting size and performance coordinates pretty well, we did focus on only meeting the MTBF or reliability portion of the product at a baseline from the specifications that the customers had. As a result of this strategy and low reliability, this set the stage for future rounds, which progressed into issues in market share. So we're going to look into the low-end segment, which had the highest unit demand. We had close customer specifications, but were underwhelming in reliability. So our performance coordinates were just 0.2 above. We were able to meet customer size at 17.8, but that MTBF was kept at a baseline at 12,000. So all of our competitors had issued 14,000 MTBF, which didn't necessarily hurt us in this round, as we were still able to capture 42% customer accessibility and 71% customer awareness. The accessibility factor I do want to highlight is because we invested $1,500 compared to Chester, Digby, and Baldwin, who all invested under $1,000 in these sales budgets. So I believe that saved us in customer accessibility for this round. However, we could have done better in reliability, which would have likely put us closer to Erie with competition and market share, as they invested $2,000 both in promo and sales, achieving 50% customer accessibility and 80% customer awareness. Additionally, we experienced stockouts in all of the segments, including the low end, which impacted our sales. We were losing money from not having enough product to provide our customers, which also directly impacted our market share. So we were 4th in market share out of all the teams, and we only held 16% of that market share. Coupled with the promo and sales budget where we lacked in comparison to Erie, we should have made improvements in round 2 to offset that. Additionally, in the traditional segment, we were able to meet our performance coordinates closely. They wanted 5.7, we gave them 5.5. However, we went really high in size at 15.4 when they only wanted 14.3. One of our biggest downfalls, again, is the lack of investment in reliability. All teams, aside from Team Ferris, invested $17,500 in reliability, whereas we only invested $16,000 in reliability. Because it was a first round, our sales and promos budgets were higher than most of our competition, which helped us gain 73% customer awareness and 61% customer accessibility. But similar to the low-end segment for feet, we just did not have enough product to meet the demand of the customer, so they either went and bought substitutes in our low-end segment or just going to other competitors who closely met the customer specifications that they wanted. Additionally, Team Ferris achieved cost savings in material costs, so we had the lowest material cost in all segments. But to highlight traditional, we were at $976, and low end we were at $574. While we did achieve this, we did not foresee the impact of the challenge of managing material costs in later rounds. In 2027, Ferris continued to pursue their broad differentiator strategy, continuing to try and meet customer specifications as well as they could. However, they continued to fall short in the reliability aspect of the products. While their intent was solid, their execution did vary across all product segments, which exposed strategic issues in round 3, which we will get to shortly. Ferris contribution margin in all segments was over 34%, except for foam, which had a 28% contribution margin. And this is partially due to having inventory left over and not finding a balance in capacity, production, and R&D investments for this product segment. This was the only segment of ours that did not stock out, and we were left with a remaining inventory of 177 units. On a positive note, our total contribution was 36.8%, coming in second, right behind Andrews, who achieved a contribution margin of 38.1% for this round. Ferris took measurable steps towards aligning their R&D efforts with customer expectations in order to improve positioning, age, performance, etc. However, we did drop the ball on reliability once again, only making modest investments towards MTBF, if we made any investments at all. This resulted in only 1 to 2% gains in market share across segments. We did not experience any fall in market share. However, there were other teams such as Erie, who experienced significant market share jumps for about 9% in some segments. We'll focus on the same contributors as last round. Erie and Baldwin both invested heavily in SG&A and were able to capture more of that accessibility and customer awareness than Ferris. So we had a lower promotion spending of $1,500 versus $2,000, which limited the accessibility and awareness to our customers. One of our weakest segments is the size segment, which is fume. We only captured 13% of the market share, which is considerably low compared to Erie's market share of 42%. Erie continued to make large investments in promo and sales budget, which reflected their market share, and they have continued to capture the customer awareness and accessibility compared to Fume or Team Ferris, which has proven to be a very, very difficult segment to catch up in. Additionally, we see that the MTBF still lagged across all product segments. We stayed at the best baseline for a lot of our product segments, including our highest demand, which is traditional and low-end segments. So that is fast and feet. Our competitors for traditional all priced their MTBF at 16 million or higher, whereas we only invested 14 million in our reliability. This trend continues in the low-end segment, where we only invested 12 million in reliability. All other teams invested 14 million towards this low-end product, and we were pricing at a premium, which did not help our case, and customers went elsewhere to get a better price with better reliability, even though it was for a low-end product. Notably, our high-end segment was also a problem. We were pricing at a premium, letting the broad differentiator drive that strategy for the list price. However, we gave them the lowest reliability or MTBF at 20 million. All of the competitors invested 22 million and up with more competitive pricing, more allocation to promo and sales, which just did really nothing for our market share, increasing it by 1 to 2%. Baldwin captured that market share at 22% and Erie at 21%. So those two are neck and neck because they're able to meet those customer specifications more closely than we are. Overall, we were able to meet customer specs for the performance and size coordinates more closely than the reliability, as we continue to lag behind all of our competitors who are making more reliable products. We also want to take into consideration that we need to invest in SG&A funds, which is promo, sales, and R&D, so that we can compete more closely with our competitors. However, we will be doing this in cohesion with our broad differentiator strategy. So our broad differentiator strategy will continue to drive these decisions. We'll continue to price at a premium, but mark our list price to be more competitive with those product segments and competitors who have a premium price, in hopes of gaining more of their market share and experiencing more than 1 to 2% increases in the next year. Round 3 was a strategic shift for Team Ferris as they moved from a cost-saving focus more towards reliability and investments in SG&A. While these investments were modest, we can see that in 2028 to 2029, the traditional segment did not experience any change in MTBF, which was likely a mistake since this was our highest demand or one of our highest demand products. Our low-end product saw a modest increase of 500. Our high-end saw a significant increase of 3,500. Performance saw a 2,250 increase, while size saw a 3,000 increase. And this was in hopes of aligning more with our competitors' reliability in their product segments compared to ours, since we determined that that was really one of our areas of weakness. While we wanted to be more aggressive with our MTBF spend, it was really driving up our material costs, and it was difficult to get away from that type of thinking where we were so focused on cost savings, and shifting from that also proved to have a financial strain on our income statement. As a result of our modest changes to MTBF, we experienced higher material costs because MTBF does drive those material costs up. And so that shaped our decisions for the production area, where we invested in automation so that our labor costs can be lowered the following year, which would hopefully offset the high cost of material, with the hopes of not having any financial or negative financial cash positions in our income statement. This graph represents Baldwin, Erie, and Ferris' strategic decisions on how MTBF and SG&A sales and promo budgets work together. In this round, Ferris achieved 87% or more in customer awareness across all segments. However, their customer accessibility remained low across all segments, ranging between 44 and 60%. This was not the case for Baldwin and Erie, who captured 100% of customer awareness across all product segments. While neither team captured 100% in customer accessibility, their percentages increased across product segments as well, while other teams, Digby, Chester, and Ferris, lagged behind them in this area. I'd like to highlight some differences between Baldwin and Erie's strategy. So Baldwin capitalized on the promo budget, and I believe this was because they wanted to maintain their customer awareness, specifically in the high-end segment where they invested almost $3,000 in the promo budget. Early on, Erie had introduced 2 new products into the product segments, which are capturing 85% of customer accessibility. And so because of that, I believe Baldwin wanted to invest in promo to make sure that their customers remained aware of their products, while Erie's second product is making significant increases in this segment. I believe their mistake is not focusing on sales budgets, because this directly affects customer accessibility, in which you can see here that was Erie's focus. So they invested in high sales budgets for the traditional low-end and size segments. Coupled with their strong investments in MTBF and meeting customer specifications, Erie became the leader in these 3 segments in terms of customer accessibility, scoring 71% or higher. Across all segments, Ferris maintained around 3rd or 4th positioning in terms of customer awareness and accessibility. However, the approach we took was to level our sales and promo budgets to see how this would impact our customer awareness and accessibility, coupled with the modest investments towards MTBF. Not only do we hope to gain increased sales revenue, but we want to make sure that we are making a profit as well. So by improving these 3 areas, accessibility, awareness, and product reliability, we hope that by making those strong investments, we're able to regain market share so that we can continue to make those investments and potentially follow Erie's strategy of increasing our customer accessibility so that we can increase our market share. As of right now, our market share is below 20% in every segment, and we want to be able to compete with Baldwin and Erie by the end of the competition rounds. In round 3, as we shifted our thinking while still aligning with a broad differentiator strategy, it positioned us well for round 4, where we continued with this strategy, ensuring our customers meet their specifications and making sure that we are in proper alignment for the perceptual map. As we continue to aggressively meet customer specifications and drive up that MTBF in this round, we did experience struggles with our foam or performance segment where material cost presented a challenge, and as a result in our R&D investments we had a lower contribution margin, which was under 30% compared to all of our other segments, which are above 30% in round 4. Foam has been a struggle for us, finding the balance of meeting the contribution margin along with keeping material costs down and finding the right customer specs. So while we did accept this lower contribution margin of 28%, while the rest of our segments are over 30%, we do entertain the idea of either letting this fade out in the market or seeing where our investments position our other product segments, hoping that we're able to find the funds to position foam and remain competitive without having to abandon the product altogether. While our material costs have been trending upward, we have seen strong cost management on behalf of Ferris. However, one thing that we cannot shake is the consistent amount of stockouts that we have across several product segments. And these stockouts result in us losing sales opportunity, which is a higher loss than all of the cost savings that we completed in the earlier rounds. These stockouts have also contributed to our customers leaning more towards Erie and Baldwin's products, so we have to reposition ourselves through driving that MTBF up as well as our SG&A funds. Over the last 2 years, we have seen the trend in MTBF focus over cost savings, which you can see here that in round 4, we are notably strong across all segments in terms of reliability in hopes that we reinforce our customer perception of our product quality. While this did not help us capture the accessibility and awareness that Erie and Baldwin have, it is a step forward in repositioning ourselves in the market. We seem to have found a balance in investing in these areas while maintaining strong contribution margins compared to our competitors. We've remained strong in this area at an overall contribution margin of 37.5%, right behind Erie, who is at 43.6%. Since we have let broad differentiator guide our decision making, we have been able to make these smart investments in SG&A funding and sales, and as a result we achieved the highest profits of the round, although we were not the highest in revenue sales. So we led profits at $4,792,768, and our closest competitor was Erie at $4,294,866. With our continued investments in plant improvements, such as automation, and as TQM opens up, we hope to maintain contribution margins across all segments, including raising that of foam or performance, as well as increasing our skilled labor, trained labor, and reducing our turnover rate so that we can have some sort of staffing stabilization in the process. Finally, our other investments towards TQM hopes to control those labor and material costs so we don't have to experience any financial strain moving forward or as experience much of a challenge per se.
Hello everyone, my name is Wesley Clemens, one of the team members on Team Ferris, and today I'm going to be discussing our company's marketing strategy with you. In this section, I'm going to discuss the strategy that Team Ferris implemented for the Capsim competition. In this competition, it is important that all teams select a strategy and commit to a strategy. Why is this important? Because with each passing round, the decision-making becomes a little bit more difficult, and the right course of action is not always clear to team members. Team Ferris selected the broad differentiation strategy for this competition. So what is the broad differentiation strategy? Well, in relation to marketing, it means that the team is going to have an aggressive sales budget and an aggressive promotional budget. The team's two metrics in marketing with these budgets are customer awareness and customer accessibility. Unless Team Ferris invests enough resources to capture both elements, then we'll struggle to sell our products. Additionally, this strategy requires that we price all products across all customer criterias toward the upper end of the price range to help justify and support the higher material cost that are required to produce those premium products that customers have come to expect. In this first round of the competition, Team Ferris failed to properly execute the broad differentiation strategy. One main reason for this: the company was too focused on material cost and cost-saving measures. In the table below on this slide is an example of Team Erie, one of the market share leaders, outmaneuvering Team Ferris in the traditional segment, which is one of the most important segments to Team Ferris. As you can see here, Team Erie had priced their product 50 cents cheaper than us. Their performance was better than us at 6.0. They had a much smaller size for their chip at 14.0 versus our 15.4. And also the MTBF, which is a measure of reliability, was 17,500 versus our 1,600. In every single way, Team Erie outmaneuvered Team Ferris in this first round, and that is one key reason why customers chose to purchase their products more than our products. Additionally, Team Erie outmaneuvered Team Ferris with its sales and promotional budgets at $2,000 each, where Team Ferris had only spent $1,500 in each category. Although Team Ferris's specs were not bad for this chip in this traditional segment, customers are always going to go to the better product, the more premium product. Going into the future rounds, the company has learned that it needs to be more aggressive with its R&D specs and its sales and promotional budgets in order to help catch up and regain some lost market share. In the second round of the competition, the team struggled with strategic positioning regarding its R&D products and also its promotional and sales budgets. This resulted in Team Ferris having 4th out of 6 among market share on all teams. One thing that the leadership at Team Ferris has noticed is that Teams Erie and Baldwin continued to dominate this round across all product segments. Among the discussions of our team leadership, we've noticed that both Teams Erie and Baldwin have been aggressive in their sales and promotional budgets by spending $2 million in each across all product lines. For comparison, Team Ferris in the traditional end, low end, and high end markets spent $1.5 million for its sales budgets and promotional budgets. In its performance segment, Team Ferris spent $1 million for the sales and promotional budget, and for the size segment, we spent $1.5 million for each of those categories. Although it may be tempting to automatically spend more to meet Team Erie and Baldwin, Team Ferris has noticed that we had an advantage this round. Although Team Baldwin had greater market share compared to Team Ferris, that team had the second lowest net profit among all teams at $1,904,000. In comparison, Team Ferris ended the year with $7,453,000 in net profit. The company also acknowledged some mistakes that we made this round. One example being that our sales forecasts were inaccurate. Because our sales forecasts were inaccurate, this caused us to run out of product for every product line besides the foam product in the performance segment. Running out of product and having a misalignment of strategy between our sales forecast and how much we produce in our production schedule is preventing us from growing our potential market share, and it's also sending customers who would have bought our products into the hands of the competition. In this third round of the competition, the leadership at Team Ferris recognizes that both Team Erie and Baldwin are continuing to dominate across all customer segments. One reason for this is that both of those teams have committed in their strategy to spend more than the other teams in their promotional budgets and sales budgets. In the attached chart, one can see that Team Baldwin is spending a significant amount more in their promotional budgets across all segments compared to the other teams. And then in the sales budget, one could see that Team Erie is spending a significant amount more in their sales budgets compared to all the other teams. Although it's tempting to just spend more to meet these two teams, Team Ferris simply can't afford to spend this much. Team Ferris also is concerned about what this impact could be on its financial statements, what this impact could be on its net profit, what this impact could be on its contribution margin, and lastly, it's concerned with leading to financial overextension. Although it would be nice to be first or second in market share, it's not worth making those choices if we're not making any money. Because of this, Team Ferris has decided to shift its focus away from fixating on the market share leaders to focusing on the issues that plague us. The biggest issue that plagues us is the fact that we're continuing to stock out in every category and that we are unable to write an accurate sales forecast. Going forward into the future rounds, Team Ferris will focus less on the market share leaders and focus more on the problems that plague us. In this round of the competition, the leadership at Team Ferris acknowledges that its lower sales budgets have been a contributing factor to our lower customer accessibility across all segments. In the previous round, Team Erie had spent $3.5 million on its sales budget in the traditional segment, the low-end segment, and the size segment. So what does Team Erie's decision have to do with Team Ferris? Well, to start, Team Ferris's most important product lines are the traditional and low-end segment. The leadership at Ferris realized that unless we become more competitive with our sales budget, we're not going to have the same level of customer accessibility and ultimately the same level of sales. So, having acknowledged this, the team decided to increase those budgets for traditional and low-end segments to $3 million apiece for its sales. Additionally, the team increased its sales budget for the high-end and performance segments to $2.3 million. Lastly, the team increased the sales budget for the size segment to $2.5 million. The next factor of marketing that I'm going to discuss in this round is pricing. Attached is a chart with the price points across all categories for this round. One can see that all the teams were pretty competitive in the ranges with each other. Team Baldwin, however, as highlighted in the table, was a little bit more aggressive on their price. However, this can prevent an issue for them because for their products, 4 out of 5 of them had contribution margins in the 20% range. Team Ferris is cautious of this and can take a lesson from this to avoid pricing their products too low like Team Baldwin did. If we price our products too low, that will lower our contribution margin, and ultimately that will have a negative effect on our net profit. The leadership at Team Ferris recognizes that in order for us to successfully execute the broad differentiation strategy, we must charge premium prices to support the material cost for the premium materials needed to make products that the customer wants.
Hello, my name is Jasmine and I'll be discussing the production section for Ferris. In round 1 through 2, you can see the graph below that provides the unit sales forecast, inventory on hand, production schedule, buy and sell capacity, the automation rating, and the contribution margins for both round 1 and 2. In round 1, Ferris only increased automation rating for feet because it had the highest demand. They sold capacity for 4 of the 5 segments because they were able to meet demand when deducting unit sales forecast by the inventory on hand through its first shift capacity. So if you look at table 1, you do see that in their fast segment, they did sell 500 units of capacity. In their feet segment, they bought 300 units of capacity. In Fist, they sold 450, and in Foam and Fume, they had to they had to sell 200 units of capacity. And reason being is that their first shift capacity was able to meet their unit sales forecast and their production schedule demand. In round 2 at the table, you'll see that for Fast, they did end up having to buy 100 units of capacity, and for Foam and Fume, they also had to purchase capacity. As for Feet and Fist, they were able to meet the unit sales forecast, also the production schedule, which was the same for unit sales forecast through their first shift capacity. And if we look at the right column, for each segment, they were almost at, if not over, the 30% in contribution margin, which was one of the goals for Ferris. And a big reason for the round 1 being over the 30% in contribution margin was because Ferris did focus closely on the R&D section to lower the material costs to increase the marginal growth. In round 2, Ferris decided to focus on the material costs and ensuring that it's either the same or a little bit lower if possible, as well as providing, products that align closer to the customer specifications to stay competitive in regards to their competitors and increase their automation by 0.5 for 4 of the 5 segments, except for Fast. They left the automation rating alone. After round 1, Ferris came to the conclusion that although we were providing products out to the market that met customer specifications, it wasn't as competitive as some of our competitors. And so they really tried to hone in on the broad differentiation strategy again and really focus on buyer criteria so that it could lead to Ferris not focusing more on the automation levels in the production section in the early rounds, but more focused on, gaining that market share, gaining the demand, ensuring that we are selling our product because it is one of the higher quality products out in the market in comparison to our competitors. And so automation levels wasn't a big focus in the first few rounds. In round 1 through 2, Ferris continuously stocked out in various segments. The company calculated both the actual and the potential market shares to get the unit sales forecast. But essentially, they were still stocking out, and therefore, when they came to the unit sales forecast, they would calculate both the actual and the potential, but they would only utilize the one that provides the highest demand in hopes that it would help us stop stocking out. The company's focus was on keeping material costs, labor costs, and automation levels low so that it can increase the contribution margin for the company to be 30% or higher. And the reason being is that it would help showcase to our stakeholders that the company is healthy due to larger contribution margins that would help support overall profitability, cash flow, and increases funds to invest in marketing and our research and development section more. Ferris used the just-in-time strategy to limit the inventory carrying costs of the plant. Part of this strategy included selling off capacity to match the actual forecast. However, since Ferris's round 1 and 2 resulted in complete stockouts, it showed that Ferris production goals were not necessarily aligned with the forecasting and capacity goals. And therefore, we are still working through figuring out what decisions we have made that really are affecting our potential market share numbers. That is making us calculate the potential market share and still stocking out and not meeting our demand. And a few things have come about this, right? It's just definitely focusing on our differentiation strategy, making sure that we provide products that are more aligned and competitive. And one of these things being that we need to focus more closely on MTBF, which is the reliability in our products. We would focus on it if it was the number one criteria and under the buyer criterias in each segment. However, for all the other segments where it was like third or fourth most important, we kind of just kept the reliability at the lowest range. And we have seen that with our competitors, those decisions just increasing the reliability, even though in each segment it might be third or fourth most important, it has provided them higher demand, increased market share, along with the marketing section and the facts that they invested more in their sales and promo budgets, which provided them more customer awareness and customer accessibility. So things like that is what we have now started to hone in on with Ferris, to ensure that not only are we meeting buyer criteria competitively against our competitors, but also, ensuring that we provide good quality products, which will help us in the marketing section along with our production when we get increased demand. But also with more sales, we'll get more profits, which will help us reinvest in our production section, in our labor costs, as well as in our TQM section and our HR segment with getting more skilled labor to kind of use less complement to meet the same demands levels as we did in round one. So those are some of the things that are currently being focused on to ensure that we keep high marginal costs but stay focused on our broad differentiation strategy, all while trying to gain profitability and show healthy returns for our stakeholders. So Ferris did use the just-in-time strategy to limit the inventory carrying costs of the plant, and part of the strategy included selling off capacity to match the actual forecast. However, since Ferris's round 1 and 2, it resulted in stockouts, which showcased that Ferris production goals were not aligned with the forecasting and capacity goals. And so Ferris's competitors, Chester and Digby, did in fact had inventory balances of about $20,364 and $25,515, which is not necessarily beneficial, as excess inventory leads to unnecessary inventory carrying cost. So what we're trying to figure out is a good medium from having too much excess inventory carrying costs like our competitors Chester and Digby, but to also not stock out and have a little bit of inventory left over to ensure that we meet all of the demand and continue to increase our profits for the demand that is out there for our market and for our products in general. And if you look at the graphs down below in the production versus capacity, you do see that our production levels are very similar to our base capacity, which will in turn see, close to 100% plant utilization. And in the graph next to it, the price versus unit cost, this really showcases our marginal cost. The green is our marginal cost. And then obviously the darker blue is our labor cost and per unit, and then our material cost. And so we started to in round 3 and 4 started to kind of stray away from focusing so much on decreasing our material cost in R&D to increase our marginal cost in our production section, but to really get back to Ferris's broad differentiation strategy and focusing on providing products that really align with the buyer criterias and focusing on the small decisions like increasing our MTBF, no matter if it is third or fourth most important to our buyers. And hopefully in turn we will see more demand and provide, with the marketing section increasing our investments there as well. We'll see higher demand in our production. And with our automation level slowly incrementally increasing in our production section, we should decrease our labor cost quite a bit as well. In round 3 and 4, you can see the tables down below. In round 3, our unit sales forecast was lower than what we input for our production schedule. And the reason being is that we continued to stock out, and so we increased each section that was stocking out by 10% to hopefully meet these sales forecasts and our consumer demand. And then in the buy and sell capacity, you can see that for fast, feet, and fist, along with fume, we had to buy capacity. And the reason being is that we did in round 1 sell off too much capacity. And so now we are going back to reinvest in it to meet the growing demand. We did also increase some of the automation ratings incrementally by 0.5. And once again, focused highly on ensuring that we did have 30% or more in our contribution margin for profitability purposes, and ensuring that our stakeholders saw that our company in a healthy standard. In round 4, you can also see that our unit sell forecast demand is lower than our production schedule, that being that we did increase our production schedule by 10% for all of those segments that did stock out. For fist and fume, we did not stock out, and we had inventory on hand in round 4, which is why we had lower production schedule than our unit sale forecast, and that being is that we deducted the unit sales forecast by the inventory on hand to give us the production schedule to ensure that we don't have too much carrying inventory cost, as we weren't selling the products as best as we should be. This could be for multiple reasons, whether we weren't meeting the buyer criteria. It could be customer awareness or customer accessibility to our products in our marketing section. So various different decisions that could have resulted in this inventory on hand. And when we go back and we look at our courier, we did come to realize that we did not increase our marketing section too much. So we were getting customer awareness, but we didn't have customer accessibility to our products, which could have led to our inventory on hand, as our customers were not able to get their hands on our product. So we also had to purchase, again in round 4, additional capacity for Fast and Feet. And we did sell sell off some capacity for Fist, and left Foam and Fume alone. And we did increase our automation ratings, of course, again, incrementally by 0.5, to especially in our Fast and Feet section, as that was our higher demand products. And then if you look at round 4's contribution margin, we did have, once again, our focus was to be above 30%. Obviously, for foam, we've been struggling a little bit because of the buyer criterias and the material costs. So if we do provide, this foam segment, the products that the buyers want with those specifications, it is costing us more material costs to give them the products with the specifications that they wish for, which is resulting in lower contribution margins, as well as the the demand in unit sales forecast is slowly increasing, but we did make progress from round 3 to round 4 in the fact that we didn't have inventory on hand. However, we need to find that medium for Ferris to ensure that we're not stocking out and we don't lose out on those profits because we didn't meet the demand. So in round 3, Ferris experienced widespread stockouts across majority of their products, and to better align forecasts with actual demand, the team in round 3 calculated both the actual and the potential demand and utilized the projection with the highest unit demand observed. Ferris also refocused its strategy towards broad differentiation. Although we did that in round 2, we did realize in round 3 that we needed to increase our reliability and look at what our competitors were producing for products and the specifications. And although we were within the range of the specifications for our buyer criterias, it wasn't as competitive due to our lack of focus in our reliability criteria. So we did focus more highly on that to better align with the buyer criterias and ensuring increase and prioritizing our customer criteria. So by increasing marketing investments to boost the awareness and accessibility of our products that we were putting out in the market. And this was aimed at driving higher sales and in turn increasing demand, which would influence our production decisions. By also increasing marketing, we did want to increase our market share, which wasn't the biggest focus, as we've come to learn through our first 3 rounds, but it was about investing in our marketing sales budget so that we can gain more customer accessibility, because we were getting 100% in our customer awareness, but we had very low percentage of like 45% of customer accessibility, which could have resulted in the reason as not increasing demand or having some leftover inventory on hand or things of that nature. So we are taking a look at those things and deep diving to ensure that we can find a good balance, but sticking to our broad differentiation strategy and our just-in-time strategy. To support this anticipated demand, Ferris did begin to incrementally increase their automation levels, ensuring future production could scale more efficiently and reduce human labor capital. A major mistake for Ferris was that in earlier rounds, we sold off too much capacity, which now required costly reinvestment to meeting growing demands, as we saw that we bought capacity in round 3 and 4. So, as we have seen through rounds 1 through 4, our stockouts have persisted. Ferris not only relied on the highest projected unit demand, but still added an additional 10% buffer to our unit sales forecast to our production schedule for the segments that had zero inventory on hand. This aggressive adjustment was intended to more accurately match the customer demand and capitalized on the missed sales opportunities, ultimately boosting profitability through additional unit sales. Even despite this effort of producing above base capacity or above our unit sales forecast for our production schedule, Ferris avoided overtime production in all 4 rounds by purchasing additional capacity and maintaining the complement at 100%, which reduced our overtime and kept our overtime at 0%. But by purchasing additional capacity, it maintained our plant utilization over 100% in 4 of the 5 segments. The exception was the 5th segment, where utilization remained at a low 77% due to the decision not to sell off all of their excess inventory from the production schedule. And ultimately, this just lowered the operational efficiency for the 5th segment. Ferris made this decision strategically because they anticipated that if demand in the 5th segment ever increased due to our ongoing research and development and marketing efforts, it would in turn cost us more in the future to repurchase the needed capacity. So we didn't want to sell off all of the overhead capacity that we had in this segment, because holding on to the extra inventory was our strategic move to support the future long-term growth without incurring higher costs later in the future for this segment. And down below, you can kind of see what our decisions were for our buyer criteria, as well as what we priced our products, and how that led to our increased contribution margins, as pricing our product is also a very important factor into what our contribution margin will be based on our marketing section as well. And the very right hand side, you will see the plant utilization for each segment. And as mentioned, FIS was the one that wasn't, the production section wasn't being utilized at 100% efficiency. Now I'll go ahead and discuss our human resources section for the company Ferris. In our HR round 1 through 2, I have posted the courier for round 2. As round 1, we all started in the same level, so there wasn't really much to showcase. But after our first round, here is the results of it. And in round 2, Ferris started out with the 3rd highest needed complement. And of the first shift capacity, they had 675 only needed, and 71 to work second shift, and that resulted in 0% overtime. As Ferris is focusing strongly on their production area to make sure that we do not have overtime, and in relation with the HR section to ensure that we are providing training as well as recruiting spend so that we can get more skilled labor to make our production section more efficient and reduce our complement. So it had a turnover rate of 8.7% in 2027, which decreased from 10% in 2026. We ended up hiring 236 employees to help meet our production levels. And in round 2, a focus was the increase in recruiting spend and training hours to help obtain the skilled workers to decrease the complement, which in turn increased our productivity index of skilled and trained labor. from 100% to 100.5%. So our productivity index increased by 0.5% in 2027 due to our recruiting spend and our training hours in relation to our production section. In our HR round 3, Ferris did not have a strike, unlike its competitors Baldwin and Chester in round 3, meaning that our workforce was happy with their wages and benefits and our working conditions. Unlike Baldwin and Chester, who Baldwin had 5 days of strike and Chester had 8 days of strike, which really interfere with production and sales and meeting customer demand. And as mentioned, the reasons for strikes is due to unhappy team members with wages or their benefits or working conditions in round 3. So we were very successful in round 3 by not having any strikes and ensuring that our employees are happy with their wages, benefits, and our working conditions. Ferris did have 104.6% in productivity index, which was a big increase from round 2. As round 2 we had 100.5 in productivity index. So good progress there. However, they only had an HR admin cost of $1,412, which is a lot more than double for what our competitors Erie invested in. They spent $3,432 in their admin costs, but we had 104.6 in productivity index and they had just 5.2 more in productivity, and they spent $5,000 on recruiting spend and 80 hours in training, while Ferris just spent 35 in recruiting spend and 40 hours. So they paid more than double in admin costs for just 5.2% more in productivity than we did. So it's still considered a win because we got the most productivity for the least cost. Of course, they got more productivity, but they spent over double the amount that we did for not double the amount of productivity index. So a higher index reflects a more efficient workforce, but the focus for Ferris was to have low cost with high productivity, which was the result. We had the third lowest turnover rate, which signifies that employees are moderately happy and are staying and performing well. In our HR round 4 for Ferris, Ferris has the highest wages and benefit packages compared to its competitors, which just really makes, Ferris's company a choice for employees to come, which would help us with our recruiting because we would be more inclined to receive higher candidates due to our higher wages and benefits and our packages for them. It did help with decreasing our turnover rate. Although our turnover rate is 7.9%, we did start at 10%. So we are incrementally decreasing it with, higher wages, benefit packages, training and recruiting spend. And obviously, in regards to our production section, making sure that our team members are not overworked because that could increase their turnover rate. So balancing both is really important to decreasing our turnover rate overall. In round 4, we had 0 separated team members, but we did hire 78 new hires, which once again goes and shows that we are a company of choice for hires because we are hiring team members, yet we are not separating team members. They are skilled in the workforce. They are working efficiently. We aren't overworking them, and so we are decreasing our turnover rate overall. So our competitor Erie had the highest productivity index at 114.8%, while Ferris had a production index at 108.8, which is third highest. It is continuously increasing. We were at about 104% in round 3, so increasing it to 108.8 is good progress. Once we get to 110%, that should decrease our complement to 95% to ensure that we only need 95% of the workforce to meet our demand, such like we needed in round one. This gives, and we also give annual raises of 5.4%, which is the highest in the market, and the highest wage of $26.77, making our company more intriguing to employees and candidates, and ensuring we take care of our people.
Hello everyone, my name is Wesley Clemens, one of the team members of Team Ferris. Today I get the privilege of discussing our company's financial strategy with you, as well as our company's financial position. In this Capsim simulation, the leadership team at Team Ferris has decided to implement a fiscally conservative approach regarding its financing. In the early rounds of the competition, we were conservative when it came to issuing debt and common stock. The team decided, instead of using those avenues to pay for the needed upgrades in the plant, as well as upgrades with capacity and automation, that we would prefer to spend our retained earnings to pay for those needed investments. Additionally, our team is mindful that at the end of each round, we maintain a positive cash position, and if we need to, we'll issue some debt to cover that position. By doing this, we could avoid an emergency loan and the negative interest that comes with that loan. When it comes to the required investments in R&D, marketing, and production, the team is watching closely two main metrics. The first being the contribution margin, as we want to make sure that margin is above 30% in all of our product ranges. And then secondly, we're mindful of looking at the net profit on our income statement. The team has committed to the broad differentiation strategy, and we know that this strategy will require that we spend more on material cost in order to provide the materials needed for our R&D efforts to create those premium products that our customers come to expect. In the first round of our competition, the leadership team at Team Ferris has decided that it needed to expend some capital to increase automation on our two most important product lines. These lines are the traditional segment and our low-end segment. In order to help pay for this, the team decided that it should sell some excess capacity across all lines besides our low-end line that produces our feet products. Doing this will help increase our free cash position, and this is demonstrated on the chart that is provided. Our team is also proud of the fact that this year our net profit was greater than the market share leader of Team Erie. As provided in the chart below, we could see that Team Erie had the greatest market share at 21.94%, compared to our team, Team Ferris, at 15.26%. This demonstrates that our company has done a better job of managing our cost and making a greater profit. Going forward into the future rounds, their company is going to focus on increasing our sales. That way we could have some extra cash to pay for the needed materials and labor that are required to successfully produce and sell products that our customers have come to expect. In the second round of the competition, Team Ferris decided to continue to be conservative regarding its finances. In order to help cover our closing cash position, as highlighted in the provided chart, the team issued $2 million worth of long-term debt and $2.5 million in short-term debt. This helped us have an increase in our cash position at the end of this fiscal year compared to the previous fiscal year. Another point that the team would like to highlight that we are proud of is our net profit. As demonstrated in the table below, Team Ferris had a net profit at the end of this fiscal year of $7,453,000. For only having 15% of market share compared to Team Erie's 28.29%, so almost 30%, almost double. Team Erie only had a marginal increase in their net profit. We could see that they had $9,518,000 compared to Team Ferris. Another thing the team would like to highlight that we're proud of is our continued investment in plant improvements. We could see that in this fiscal year we invested $11,156,000. The team believes that in order to successfully execute the broad differentiation strategy, we will have to continue to increase our automation and increase our efficiencies and capacity within the plants to help reduce our materials and labor's cost. Another point that the team would like to acknowledge is that there is a delicate line between producing the premium products that customers have come to expect in the broad differentiation strategy with also having a healthy profit margin. Team Ferris is committed to continuing to reevaluate the strategy and work towards finding that happy medium. In this round, the leadership team at Team Ferris has recognized that they were faced with a dilemma. This dilemma is that both Team Erie and Team Baldwin have continued round after round to produce products that far exceed the customer criterias as provided in the Capstone Courier. Because of this, products like the one that our team produces that do meet and oftentimes exceed the specifications are no longer deemed desirable by customers because there's better offerings at the market. Because of this dilemma, Team Ferris recognizes the need to invest heavily in plant improvements regarding capacity and automation. Doing this will help avoid second shift percent and also an increase in overtime percentage, which helps our profitability by reducing expenses. Additionally, Team Ferris recognizes that one point of strength for them this round was the return on assets compared to these two other teams. Team Ferris only having 16.44% of the market share compared to Erie at 29.27% and Baldwin at 25.68% had a 9.1% return on assets. That's pretty good compared to the 10.5% return on assets for Team Erie and the 9.6% return on assets for Team Baldwin. This metric demonstrates that despite such a drastic difference in market share, our team is being more efficient in its production and more efficient in its financing, and ultimately we're turning a better profit. This signals to investors that the leadership team at Team Ferris is making more wise decisions in execution of the broad differentiation strategy. In this round of the competition, the leadership team at Team Ferris recognized a shift in dynamic within the industry. The first thing the team noticed is that 3 out of all 6 teams fell prey to needing emergency loans. This resulted because of their financial overextension. The most notable example of a team that needed an emergency loan was Team Erie. Team Erie led first in market share throughout most of the competition, and they required a $28,463,000 emergency loan. By doing this, it compromised their position as leader in the market, and this affected their net profit as well. Additionally, Team Baldwin needed an emergency loan for $9,708,000, and then Team Chester, they needed one as well, although Team Chester hasn't been as much of a threat to Team Ferris. Team Ferris, who was 4th in market share, is proud of the fact that our net profit was $4,793,000 at the end of this fiscal year. Team Erie, who led in market share, closed their fiscal year with $4,295,000 in market share. And then lastly, Team Baldwin, the second leader in market share this round, had a significantly lower net profit of $2,767,000. This demonstrates that although these other teams had drastically greater market share than Team Ferris, there is a sense of an illusion to investors and to customers that they could produce products with the best specs, the best marketing budget, products with the greatest accessibility, with the greatest awareness. But at the end of the day, if your contribution margin remains in the 20% range, like Erie's did in one of the rounds, then eventually you're going to run out of money. The leadership at Team Ferris is proud of the fact that we did not fall prey to the temptation to emulate Team Erie that much. And the leadership at Team Ferris is proud of the fact that despite the fact that we are 4th in market share, we're currently making wise financial decisions. Some additional points that the leaders of Team Ferris would like to make this round is a comparison of stock price at the close of the fiscal year. Due to some of the financial mismanagement from Teams Erie, Baldwin, and Digby, one could see in this listed stock market summary the drastic reduction in their price per share. For example, Team Digby lost $30.09 per share, and they closed the year at $48.12. This is quite a significant loss from the previous fiscal year for them. Team Erie, as a result of needing an emergency loan, had an $18.24 reduction in their price per share this fiscal year. Team Baldwin as well had a pretty drastic reduction in their price per share at $8.97. Lastly, Team Ferris had a slight reduction. We lost $2.78 per share. However, the team is proud of the fact that despite the fact that we're fourth in market share, we had the highest closing price per share among all the teams. To us as leaders, this is encouraging because it shows that our conservative fiscal decision making is resonating with stakeholders because they're trusting us to not sell off their shares of stock. Additionally, the team is humbled by the fact that investors trust us to continue to make these right decisions, and the leadership at Team Ferris will not forget this round. We will take the lessons learned, unfortunately for the other teams, through observation of what could happen if we were to financially overextend ourselves as well. Going forward into the future rounds of this competition, our team is more committed than ever to keeping a close eye on the contribution margin across all segments of our production lines, as well as keeping an eye on our net profit and also keeping an eye on our closing cash position. If we look at these as gauges to help aid in our decision making, then our company will continue to prosper and succeed for many years to come.
For our TQM investment overview, Ferris spent a total of $6,550,000 that focused on multiple decisions and initiatives. And some of our outcomes were decreased labor costs and decreased administrative costs with improved cost structures and efficiencies. So let's deep dive into
In the decision
segment of TQM, Team Ferris opted to invest in continuous process improvement systems, just-in-time systems, quality initiative training, and the UNEP Green program. As we struggle to find a balance in the inventory we carry and stocking out in multiple product segments, the just-in-time management system will help us balance inventory levels so that we know how exactly we can meet demand while reducing inventory carrying costs. This will be supplemented through process improvement methodology systems. This type of methodology helps deliver the highest value product at the lowest cost and the quickest lead time. The additional quality initiative training will help reduce those labor costs and also meet those quality metrics that are within our sensor products. Finally, we have the investment in the UNEP Green program, which helps increase the effectiveness of the sales budget and also increases demand. So we opted to choose this type of demand investment over channel support systems. And this is because when all of the teams invest in channel support systems, the impact of demand is lower. So we did not want to take that risk. As for the UNEP Green program, it gives us an opportunity to help reduce waste and material costs, aligning with process improvement methodology, while also creating that customer loyalty and taking market share back into Ferris's segments. Regarding initiatives, Team Ferris chose to opt out of investing in benchmarking and quality function deployment efforts and focus on investing in concurrent engineering and Six Sigma training, as well as the GEMI TQEM sustainability initiatives. As we hope to use our profits and cash towards SG&A, MTBF, and other customer desires, we want to be able to focus on streamlining our design and manufacturing handoff, which would reduce waste within the production line and reduce our labor costs. Our sustainability efforts are aligned with our UNEP investments, which hope to drive brand reputation, support alignment on the perceptual map, and overall just have that corporate social responsibility as a company so that we can also improve our material efficiency and minimize those environmental risks that we contribute to the environment. To wrap up TQM, we compared Ferris to high competitor Erie and low competitor Chester. So Erie led with $20 million in investments towards TQM, which yielded the most dramatic reductions. They experienced a 7.22% decrease in labor costs and a staggering 47.54% in administrative costs, while Chester only invested $4 million in TQM, which gave them minimal gains in labor at 0.14% and some admin savings of 20.5%. Ferris took a middle pathway between the two and invested in $6.5 million and secured a 4.42% labor cost reduction, and then securing savings and admin costs of 1.59%. This is pretty low, so we hope to continue to reduce those admin costs. Overall, Erie had the highest cost reductions, while Chester's minimal investment resulted in a limited impact. For Team Ferris, we did not spend as aggressively as Team Erie, but our approach reflects those intentional trade-offs so that we can maintain flexibility and experience those gains so that we can further invest in TQM in later rounds. Overall, Ferris made strategic investments towards TQM with hopes that it will increase our demand, decrease our cost savings while improving our labor efficiency and product quality. And through efforts and funding towards corporate social responsibility, will hopefully bring in more customers and customer loyalty to our brand.